Hey, how's it going, folks? 86 Boxing. Joshua here. Just wanted to go live real quick for a quick update. Just kind of talk about what's being worked in the background with the channel. Now, I want to start with, of course, we focus on history. And so the intent is to continually look for ways to expand upon the history of boxing as well as highlighting the careers of a number of the boxing greats and just tough fighters and contenders from the past. So that is the overall intent, at least for the channel, through a mix of animation and such. But anyway, so if you would have noted, you may have noticed if you've seen previous videos that I started to include a star rating system. And the intent of that system, or at least the use of the star rating, was to try and provide a view of how good these fighters either were or kind of where they feel relative to their competition, as well as their peers in general who were very successful in the sport of boxing. So with that, of course, you always have those that will end up coming out higher as far as their rating. Now, a lot of that was assumption based when I went about the process in previous videos. So I was looking for a way to expand upon it. And through the use of ChatGPT, which is a new craze that is out there now, that you've probably seen a lot of videos on and all that stuff. But through its use, I was able to come up with or at least develop a rating system independent of thought and assumptions. And it really just focuses on the individual fighter, the information that is out there on the internet for them. It looks into their record and it supplies this rating on its own, essentially, through what's plugged into the actual system. Now, it's independent, as mentioned, fully automated outside of the simple thing where I would put the actual record of the fighters into the rating system. Now, essentially, I go with BoxRec and Cyber Boxing Zone. Those are probably the more comprehensive versions out there. And as we all know, a number of fighters probably had more fights than what is initially listed or what we may have tracked on some of those other sites, because we are talking 100 plus years in the case of a number of them that we cover here. So with that, the rating system in itself, what it does is it's like a report card. So I had to crunch on it and get it right over the course of a number of days just to get it to understand and know what I want. But essentially, it's like a report card, as mentioned, where you'll get both a score. This will be a score with a maximum score of 100 in terms of the overall score that a fighter can get. So everything is capped at 100. So there's variations in terms of the weighting as far as different categories or criteria that was chosen in order to develop this actual rating system. Now, one of those is, say, for instance, championship matches. So this takes into account those, and it adds a numerical rating based on what that cap is for rating actual championship matches. And that's the thing, each of the particular categories, they have a maximum. And in totality, as I mentioned, it all ends up at 100, but it takes the likes of that. It tries to factor in certain ring IQ technique or whatever it may be based on the amount of data that is out there on the internet, or at least capturable by the actual system in itself. But that being said, it does make for going about the videos a bit more entertaining and digestible, even in knowing where some of these fighters would rate, essentially, or where they would rank from a numerical rating and star rating. And that's, I think, a plus to what is being detailed as far as the history. Of course, a lot of fighters have been forgotten. So a number of people aren't familiar with them, and therefore they probably don't necessarily know exactly how good they were or what they were capable of. A really quick shout out to Flat Boxing, says, "What's up, man? I'm finally early. Appreciate you, Flat Boxing, talking about a rating system that is in place now, or at least that I'm using now for the current video that I'm working. And yeah, I think it's comprehensive enough that it touches on everything. It also has like adjusted achievements where certain things are adjusted, like if a fighter ran into certain barriers, if a fighter fought everyone, say for instance, there was someone that didn't fight a black fighter or something, they drew the color line or something of that nature, they take that into account, or this system in itself takes that into account as well. And it adjusts things, it factors in things like the age, and it also factors in like the era, the availability of competition during their era. And we know that when you're talking back late 1800s, early 1900s, there was an abundance of competition, given that boxing was the premier sport as far as generating the most money in fan interest, essentially, during those periods. So it takes that into account, and each individual fighter is based on their own merits, their own accomplishments. So there may be some who seemingly you would think would be higher, but they ultimately aren't higher just because of the factors that it takes into account. And this does a better job than me simply being able to do it on my own, because, as mentioned, it requires a lot of assumptions when I do it on my own. And with this, it just pulls from all the data that it can find, data that is available, where certain fights and certain things have been documented over the course of history in relation to each fighter. So I think it's going to be a great addition. And from a numerical standpoint, how it correlates with the stars, it's, for instance, if you have 90 points or more, then you're rated a 5-star boxer. And then it'll continue to go from there, like 4.5 if you're over that 80 range, et cetera, all the way down to like half a point or half a star, essentially. So that's the overall intent of the system in itself, to factor all those things in. I'll highlight them or detail them in the video, or at least through some form or through a depiction similar to what you may have seen with some of the others that I have the star rating on. And I'll continue to try and evolve this thing. This is probably the most comprehensive that it can be at the current moment. If certain things were to come up or be thrown into the fold or the mix, then that could certainly change the dynamic a bit. But I think after all the adjustments that have been made thus far, that it's in a really good place, and I think it'll be beneficial, and people will enjoy it in watching the videos. So I hope it accomplishes that. So it'll be a good addition, and I look forward to more videos on it. Shout out Paul Bright, says, "What's up, fellas?" Yeah, Paul, salute. Appreciate you coming in. Just talking about a new rating system that is going into place for rating some of these old fighters, that is completely autonomous, outside of a manual entry of some information or providing of a link to their records. But outside of that, it's fully autonomous, takes away my thoughts, opinions, and assumptions, and it rates a fighter based on all the information it can pull in relation to their actual system, or in relation to their actual career and what's been documented. So you think about that, newspapers, some of the sites that report on records, you think about articles, etc. I think that it is most certainly one of those things that will be a welcome addition. Salute Andre Rodriguez, who says, "Good evening, 86 in chat." Appreciate it, Andre. Appreciate you dropping by. Of course, he says, "Hit the like, fellas." Yes, yes, indeed. Feel free to hit that like. But appreciate you dropping by, Andre. As I was mentioning in relation to Paul coming in, yeah, there's going to be a new rating system that I utilize for what is rating these fighters, or it will rate these fighters from history of the past or whatever, based on actual information that is out there available and can be researched in a quicker capacity than what a human can do. So I was saying this is a chat GPT, had to go through several iterations to get it to understand and know what I wanted it to actually take into account. Now, so that's the thing about it, chat GPT, if you know, it's been making a lot of waves, but it's not error proof because I had to make a lot of adjustments just so it wouldn't inaccurately state something that was not the case, like saying someone fought a particular person or saying that they actually won a particular title, which was not the case. So, and I think it's pretty comprehensive. It there's a section for championship fights. I think I mentioned this, but also it takes into account some of those other belts that weren't the world titles. For instance, if you had the uh, Commonwealth title or one of the regional titles, Pacific Coast title is an example. It takes into account that information as well. Uh, Paul Bright, yes, indeed, it's AI, it's Chat GPT. So I had actually started creating a system on my own, and it was in Excel or Google Sheets is what I was using. And so, as I mentioned, that took into account a lot of assumptions. So I plug this information into ChatGPT, and through the use of ChatGPT, I've been able to refine it in a way that it will independently and autonomously provide what information or what ratings on the actual boxer. So yes, it is AI, uh, without a doubt, Paul Bright. But that being said, these AI systems, some of them they can make errors. So, like I said, I had to check multiple times, or at least go through. I had to look at each base set of criteria and take that into account each time as we go through the process of rating new fighters or whatever it may be, depending on how they line up with the videos that I'm doing. So, some of the older videos out there already have some ratings, but those will change in this new iteration of it. Max Duran, what's going on? He says, "What did I miss? Appreciate you dropping by, Max. Max, you're just mentioning that there's this new rating system that has been developed. I initially started it in a spreadsheet on my own, and it evolved to Chat GPT, where it takes AI and it uses it to comb through a ton of information that I wouldn't be able to do on my own individual research basis, because, of course, takes a lot of time, and then there's so many different databases out there, etc., websites. So this is a system that I think will be good. I think it'll be good for the videos and understanding how fighters compare, because there are a lot of fighters who don't have huge names in the sport, or they may have somewhat of a new name, or somewhat of a familiar but not truly, you know, backed understanding of who in what who these fighters were, what they did, and just how their career went relative or in comparison to their peers. So I think it will be a good one for sure. Andre Rodriguez says, "Do you trust Chat GPT 86?" So not with 100% certainty, as mentioned. I know it makes some errors or errors when I go through the process of doing it, but I think that based on the uh, Chat GPT deals with a lot of prompting. I've done a ton of prompting tied to the actual system to narrow it down and get it to the point where I feel comfortable with it, and I think it's taken into account enough of the information. Now it'll default on some of those things that we just do not have information uh, on these fighters, for instance, and that is usually due to, of course, they weren't covered in the same capacity, or some of the information is buried within newspapers or some articles or whatever. But I think it's at a point where I can definitely lean on it a good deal, and be comfortable and trust that it's going to give me the best rating it can, it, in a subjective manner, essentially, because that's what we want ultimately. So it removes my piece of it, where I was essentially just going about it through an assumption base, just looking at their resume. I would individually look at a resume of a fighter, just go through it, go through each fight, or at least go through each name and then try to get an understanding, as well as taking into account the belts as well to make my assumptions. But now this is gonna do it for me, and I think it's in a good place. Essentially, shout out Boz, welcome to welcome to the chat, Boz. Appreciate you dropping in, buddy. Of course, you could always hop in at any time. I was mentioning a rating system that is in place now that I'm going to be using for the videos moving forward. So I think it's a welcome addition. I think people will enjoy it. So salute Boz. Good stuff. Max Duran says that's often. I'm happy to hear it. Appreciate it, Max. Yeah, certainly. I was happy about it, and I'm happy where it's gotten to. Andre Rodriguez. I think it would be interesting to see what fighters such as Patrick McFarland or Dave Shade. Oh yeah. That would be pretty interesting. As a matter of fact, I know that. So right now, I think I mentioned it in the last podcast. I'm working on a videos, and I thought it would be a shorter video, so I thought I would have it out right by now at least. But it's a bit longer than what I thought it would end up being. But it's on John L. Sullivan. I've done some on him, but I think this is a good one. It's going to compare him against some of the fighters that he didn't face and how that would have affected and or changed his legacy. And it really just kind of dives into what those fighters did. Some of them you will know, basically. Well, the majority of them, if not all of them, you will know. So that's the intent, and this is where it kind of got sparked because I knew I was going to do the rating thing, and then I was like, how can I evolve this a bit more? Because there are certain things, certain circumstances that kind of just thwarted or threw off how certain fighters are ultimately rated, and yeah, I think this helped. I think this helps for sure. Boss says you look tired. I feel tired. No, I feel you, Boss. Oh, yeah. I'm, up in the mix. Feel good though. He says it's too late now here. All good, Boss. All good. Andre Rodriguez says, tell me, Boss. Yeah, without a doubt. Oh, 2:33 a.m. Wow. Wow. Yeah, it's 8:34 p.m. here, so I'm still good for the time being. But yeah, this is something I did want to work for sure, though, and actually make mention of because love the boxing history. So I'm always down to watch boxing history. Hey, salute, Paul. Good stuff. Yeah, I'm there as well. DMV. Yeah, I'm in DC, Paul. So good stuff. Salute. Shout out to you. But yeah, same time zone here. Uh, Oh yeah, Lisbon's a great place, under Rodriguez. At least from the research that I did, I want to visit there. Was going to visit there at one point, but the trip ultimately fell through. But certainly, salute to Lisbon. Nice place and good place to retire as well. Uh, and it's 5:30 for Max Duran. So oh yeah, you must be in Cali or somewhere on the West Coast, which makes sense, of course. Why the East Coast has to stay up to watch all of the major fights at a very late time, but it's all good. I know it's even more troubling or even more of a delay or a long wait for you guys overseas having to do it at some crazy time in the morning or whatever. But yeah, the good stuff indeed. And Max Around says, yeah, I'm in Long Beach. Okay, in Long Beach. LBC. Uh, but yeah, salute to Long Beach. Snoop Dogg and all them other cats put it on. Uh, but yeah, good stuff. But yeah, that's really the bulk of what I had. Yeah, I'm always down to talk history, of course, but that is the bulk of what I wanted to share, at least at this particular stage. So I hope to have that video out here very soon, sometime this week or by the end of the week, if I work enough of it. I have everything recorded and just going through that process of editing, editing and animation, which can take a good deal of time at certain points or whatever. But yeah, it's cool. It's cool though. Paul Bright, yeah, we're gonna have to check out some fight cards together. 86, without a doubt, without a doubt, certainly down. Paul, of course, I do the. I'm an amateur official as well, so I'm always at the local boxing events that are taking place here in the DMV, in DC and Maryland primarily. I'll do Virginia stuff as well, but yeah, I'm with the group that covers DC and a portion of Maryland, Prince George's County, Maryland, at least. And so it's pretty cool being able to be out and about and interact and be tied to the sport. Yeah, it's been a great ride for me. And yeah, the amateur boxing scene, top level. Of course, there are a lot of great amateurs out of this area, those that have been and those that are now turning pro, just recently turned pro. So there are a few coming up who are going to be making their debut, getting some shine, all that stuff. So yeah, definitely, Paul. Right, we'll have to make something happen, and it's nothing like that intimate feeling of being at one of the local shows. So outside of just the amateur side, but one of the local actual boxing shows, yeah, you get to be close and the prices ticket wise are very reasonable and you get to see action in what is like an authentic setting. So sometimes that can get drowned out in some of the larger or bigger fights. But yeah, when you're at some of those smaller local shows in or around your city, man, there's a ton that you end up finding out about and learning about as it relates to the sport and some of the people that are involved with it. So definitely a plus to be able to do that for sure. Uh, and boss, salute Paul Bright again. Flat boxing. Flat boxing says, "Who's your favorite or top three favorites of all time?" I know for myself personally, oh yeah, it's tough. I have so many that I like. Probably my favorite is Mike Tyson. He just was such a beast, and I enjoyed and loved his style. And he's someone that, yeah, I've seen a number of things on. So I always throw him up there. I like Muhammad Ali as well, of course. Uh, and we all know the story of Muhammad Ali and what he was able to accomplish and do in the sport. But that being said, I also like some of the older fighters as well. Uh, so yeah, it gets tough when you're thinking about that. There's so many, but those two for sure. And then it would probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of Henry Armstrong, Harry Greb, in terms of learning and understanding how they went about things. But man, there's just so many. I like so many fighters. Hard to narrow it down, but I would say for sure Mike Tyson, Ali are two that I've seen a lot of stuff on, and I've dealt with the most in terms of just kind of understanding, following, and knowing their careers to a certain degree. I was looking like I have some varying pieces of memorabilia that is based on like Ali and some Tyson stuff as well. But I like the history of the sport. That's what I prefer. Of course, that is like my favorite means of going about watching YouTube and some of the stuff that is tied to it. It's what got me into wanting to do videos on my own. I like the history of knowing some of these or finding out about some of these fighters who don't get a ton of recognition. So I try to take that into account because there are a lot of guys that are out there who, man, they just don't have that shine. Somewhere between, I guess, the world wars and when they were competing, a lot of them kind of fell off the radar in a sense. And I think that being able to highlight them in some form or fashion is it's something that I take pride in because it not only highlights them, but it helps me understand and further appreciate the sport of boxing and the history of the sport of boxing and what those guys were able to do back in the day, where the circumstances and conditions were very much different. But you know, it's wonderful to be able to learn. Flag Boxing says, I always thought that the single greatest win in boxing history was when 17-year-old Sam Lanker beat Joe Gans. Hey, you're right. That is definitely one of them. As a matter of fact, my buddy Random Acoustic Thoughts, check him out. Flag, he did a like round by round on that fight, and it's something we were going to work together. I remember recording something as well tied to that round by round, and it really just dives into how it was scored by a particular newspaper, of course, and it speaks to what Langford was able to do at that particular time, as well as the status of Gans, who was very much the real deal. And he's also one of my favorites as well. Well, both of them, Langford and Gans. But yeah, that was impressive for Sam Langford to come in and be able to defeat Joe Gans, who, one of the top of the tops as far as boxers in history. So kudos to Langford in that regard, because yeah, that's one of the things that makes him great as well, because he started at such low weights and he ended up moving up gradually. And after he went about that process, he was able to carry his power up. He was able to continue to excel, and he had some disadvantages. I think when he first fought Sam McVeigh, he was actually giving up 40 pounds in weight. So that speaks volumes of the man that he is, or at least was. And I think that's a huge plus in terms of just being able to know and kind of have an account of why things went that particular way. So I'm going to actually share the link to that vid Random did, where he's talking about the fight, round by round perspective, flat boxing. So I'm dropping that in the chat. So it's a good one. Definitely check out Random Acoustic Thoughts. Boz says Holyfield, De La Hoya, Duran, Norris, Hearns for me. Awesome. Yeah. All top shotas. All those guys can bang right there. Boz, of course, Holyfield, De La Hoya. Yeah, I like De La Hoya as well. Duran, Terry Norris, and Tommy the Hitman Hearns, big timers in the sport who made an impact on the history of the sport. So I feel you there. Yeah, I watch the modern stuff as well, try to keep up with it. I do gravitate towards the history, so that's what I spend a lot of time diving into, researching and learning about. But that being said, I stay hip to the modern stuff as well. And of course, with me and Boz doing the podcast, we kind of focus on that modern side of things. And we occasionally dabble into the history, which is expected, I guess you can say, just given the dynamics. But certainly, yeah, I'm in tune with all of it. So yeah, I'm just happy about being able to provide some form of a contribution in just making these videos and getting to know these fighters. So I have a number of them on tap. Just taking a good deal of time nowadays to finish them, but I feel that I will have a good deal of these videos ready to go over the course of the rest of the year. So I'm still gonna be in the mix there. Have no fear. I know Tommy Ryan video was the last one. I think it'll continue to catch on. So a lot of these guys, they don't have a ton of information out there on them, or at least a ton of YouTube videos out there on them. So I'm trying to help kind of fill that void in some sense. And I think a lot of these will get in front of more eyes, and eventually over the history, it'll continue to be a means by which things excel. Andre Rodriguez says next June 17th, I will present my first work in the history of boxing of Portugal in Lisboa. Just a small piece. Chronica of Sam McVeigh is the name. All right, cool. Hey, that's awesome there, Andre Rodriguez. I'm trying to think off top. Do I know any Portuguese boxer? I certainly can't think of one off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's some. They've had some people come through there, probably done some good things. Boz says, I'd love to see guys like Freddie Steele, Fritzy Zivic, and Jack Delaney. Oh, yeah, all tough and rugged. All tough and rugged. I need to learn more about Freddie Steele. I know of him. I know he was a good fighter. Of course, I know Fritzy Zivic, often considered the dirtiest fighter, or at least one of them. And then Jack Delaney as well, who was well-traveled. I believe he fought at light heavyweight, so he took on a lot of tough competition. And he is someone that certainly it would be cool to have something on. I know that I believe Fritzy Zivic on a list to create at some point. Oh, Fritzy. But yeah, I actually got a book. Someone recommended it to me where this author interviewed a number of fighters, some ranging back to the days of, for instance, Gunboat Smith, then on up to whatever year or more modern times, I would say. So yeah, that's something I'm tuned into. Andre Rodriguez says it might sound strange, but Sam was the one that, in a way, bridged. Oh yeah, brought the sport to the U.S. Yes, I can see that certainly. In this video that I'm making that I was telling you about, and I think it's apparent in the Sam McVeigh video that I did as well, or at least the Sam McVeigh video that is. But guys like Langford, Sam McVeigh, Jeanette, etc. Uh, them being able to get some shine was aided by countries like Australia and France. I think Australia and France played a significant role in heavyweight history because that's where a lot of great heavyweight battles took place during that period or time frame between where Sam McVeigh and Sam Langford and Jeanette were all competing, usually against each other multiple times as well in the midst of that. So yeah, that's definitely one of those things I could see being the case right there. Bob said he's seen one fight with Freddie Steele. Okay, I'll have to check that out. I don't know that I've seen that, Bob. I'm definitely gonna try and check that out right there. I think that's uh, pretty cool. Jose Santa Camaro or Camarao is the only one worth mention coming from here. All right, cool, Andre. I had to look him up. Yeah, because I don't know him. I definitely don't know him. Jose Santa Camarao. But yeah, I'm gonna look into him for sure because I think that's interesting. Yeah. And certain countries have produced a number of top tier fighters. Um, yeah, I hope to one day, just get to as many of them as I can. Sorry, but yeah, I do look forward to it. Andre says it's a football country. Unfortunately, indeed. I remember, of course, Cristiano Ronaldo being from Portugal, top tier guy right there. So yes, certainly a football country. Football is huge, probably the biggest of all the sports that are out there. Really, Bob says Delaney was a great puncher at 175. Birth name Oliva Chapdelaine or Chapdelaine. Interesting, good stuff, Bob. Yeah, I didn't know that was his birth name, but I've run across Jack Delaney in some of the videos that I've made because I know he faced some big name fighters and was a very good fighter himself. Uh, Andre Rodriguez says, "You guys can't believe the reaction I get when in boxing events I mention fighters such as Benny Leonard or Barbados Joe Walcott. Being who? Barbados what? Hard work in this play. Oh yeah, without a doubt, there, Andre. Yeah, I run into it myself. Uh, a lot of people, yeah, they're not as tuned in on the history. And if you think about where we are now in the social media age, where you can have a quick video like a TikTok or some reel or something, and people are quick to move to the next thing. I think that you see that gap widen in some sense, and you truly get an understanding of why they don't know who the historic fighters are. But there are a lot of people making great content that are out here doing things, trying to spread that word. Shout out Random Acoustic Thoughts, Boxing Library, and of course I know many, if not all of you know. Then of course Scrapbook Boxing, and there are others like Rummy, etc., where they're putting in that type of effort to kind of document the overall history. And of course, if you've seen my stuff, then I lean more late 1800s, early 1900s, because there were a lot of guys there who got kind of buried, I guess you can say, in as far as mentions, and they were very good. Definitely deserve some of that attention that has been coming by or coming their way. Baz said that was a short fight when he stopped Gus Lesnovich in 2 rounds. Okay, awesome. Yeah, I had to check that out. I don't know if it's available there via video, but I'll have to check it out. I know I've seen Gus Lesnovich take out Freddie Mills, but Gus Lesnovich was a very good fighter, very good light heavyweight. I was thinking about doing a little poll with him, or at least it's crossed my mind a number of times see how he stacks up when compared to some of the other great light heavyweights of the past. Bob says Delaney was French Canadian. Oh, awesome. Cool. That makes sense then. That first name or that his birth name that you mentioned. Rodolfo Rivera Jr. in the building says, "Up, y'all. Appreciate you dropping by, Rodolfo. Appreciate you dropping by without a doubt." Rodolfo says, "Wasn't expecting a live 86." Yeah, this was a random thing. I decided to just come on. Rodolfo, I was mentioning there's a rating system that has been created that I have now. Well, at least it was created through ChatGPT. It started from a little rating, well, set piece of criteria that I had put in place. I was working in an Excel document, but I wanted to look for ways to refine it and remove my assumptions from the actual equation. And this does a good job of doing that. And so, with that in mind, it adjusts for everything. So, I can tell you, since I'm working on the John L. Sullivan video, which I've mentioned, I know that it rated him an 88, which is a 4.5 star. So, 88 out of 100. So, I think that's telling in big time. And I think that is just a glimpse of what's to come, of course. So, a glimpse of what's to come. 86. Did you ever mention or did you ever do the motion work on at Walgas? I believe I did. It was either him or midget Walgas. Let me see. I think I did. It's one of the two. Uh, yeah, and I don't know for sure. I don't know for sure. Uh, yeah, Walgas. Color animation. Yeah, I'm thinking I may not. I think I might have did midget Wolgas, but that would have been a while. Even if I did him, that would have been a while ago. So yeah, he's one. Certainly, I had to look into it. At least do a short on him or something, which I've done for some in the past. Certainly, but Ed Walgas, I know of him. I don't know a ton on him, but I do know of his name. I know he was a very good fighter, especially when you think about those back then. Also, Boz says also worth mentioning is Paul Berlenbach, another light heavyweight world champion. Oh yeah, I've come across his name as well. I have come across him in the mix. So good one. Yeah, I need to look up more on him and study him a bit more. But I have come across him there, Boz. Good name for sure. Good name without a doubt. Then there's some other ones who come about at different times. Yeah, so Andre Rodriguez says, not the midget wall guys, add wall guys. I would love to see your work on him. You do such a great work. All right, appreciate it, Andre. I have to add him to the list for sure. I have a running list of some people I want to do videos on. I don't necessarily go by it in any order or anything. And sometimes I'll come up with stuff that's not even on there. But I'm going to add him to the mix, add Wolgas. Yeah, I believe I remember, yeah, seeing a video of him or something like that. I could be wrong, but I remember in some of those old videos I'll watch, at least what is out there and available. I do think I remember coming across him and or some mention of him, something. So I don't know if there's for sure fight film out there, but I feel like I remember something. Midget was not really called Wall Guys. Ad was, yeah, good to go. Midget was obviously named after Ad as a boxer. Yep, that makes sense. We see a lot of that. Yeah, that's one of the crazy things. I want to do some more of those videos on some of those fighters with the same name, and some of them were able to, stand out, do their thing, while in some cases not quite to the level of the original namesake. In others, they were. I know Jack Thompson. He's one of them who was better than the original Jack Thompson. That's one I can think of that I recall for sure. So it's very interesting, very intriguing. You see that a lot in boxing, taking on of different names or whatever. Andre Rodriguez says, I'm doing so much research about Ed that I think is absolutely insane that there's no great book about him. What a life story. Awesome there, Andre. So yeah, that sparks interest even for me at this particular point. It's sparking a bit more interest for sure. So I certainly want to check out Ed. I'm gonna look into him a bit more. after I finish this video that I have, there are like one or two others that I want to tackle. I'm gonna make sure that ad is on that list for sure, because I think it would be good to get a better understanding of them. I want to do Abe Patel at some point, the little Hebrew Abe Patel who I did a poll on recently. So I'll definitely let you know how that goes. Bob says ad ended a sad case, died in a mental hospital. Yeah, unfortunate. That has happened to a number of guys in the sport of boxing. Those that were giving you it all, giving us their all in the midst of their career, and then in older age or post career get kind of forgotten and then left in dire states, essentially. So yeah, we've seen a lot of that, and ideally, yeah, you don't want to see a fighter go out in that manner, but certainly it happens. Under Rodriguez says exactly, Bob. I found some records of nurses betting on him to fight three other guys at the same time in the institution. Wow, that's pretty crazy and barbaric. Yeah, crazy thing, says Andre Rodriguez. Definitely, that is pretty barbaric, crazy for sure. Having him do that type of stuff. Bob says they say his manager let him train for years after he was really done, kept promising him another fight that never happened. Wow. Yeah, that's pretty that's pretty crazy. And Boz, yes, he tried to help him out, but he went down in the institution again and escaped. Oh, okay. Yeah, that is pretty crazy. Uh, yeah. Interesting. I'm gonna add him to the list. I want to learn more about him myself for sure. But yeah, that's really the gist of what I had. I wanted to mention this, and of course, I'm going to try and do these more where I just focus on history in itself. Some where I just definitely just dive straight into the history. So expect more. Calling it boxing history every night. Let's make it happen. Let's certainly make it happen. But yeah, I appreciate all you guys jumping in. It's been good. Certainly, the rating system. I told you about it. Be on the lookout. So I'm gonna have this video out as soon as possible, for sure. But I definitely appreciate you all dropping in. And until next time, of course, we're gonna be back in the mix. Appreciate you, Boz, Andre, Paul Bright, Max Duran, all dropped in. Flag Boxing, salute to you all. But yeah, there'll be more discussions, more in-depth history discussions. So for sure, stay tuned. For sure, stay tuned, my people.